We had a guest presenter who's a professor at Boston University, and his expertise is transformational leadership. And so I was reading all of his books on my own, and there was, sometimes authors write something that they think is so good, but they can't get it published, and so they put it at the end of a book. That's why books are this thick, and most of them need to be this thick. You know that. The 20/80 rule is applied to every book in the world except the one Kathy just published. Would you hold that one up? I'm so proud of you. Kathy's been working, dreaming for years, and this book just got published. It's very cool. Yes? I want what she's got.
The Secrets of Creating an Outrageous Life.
Yeah. So there was this throwaway chapter in the back, and it was called The Good Life. And this prof was just kind of dreaming, and his friends were talking about the good life, and he said, I think I'll define that for myself. And I kind of just took that as a challenge, and I thought, Jared, how would you describe the good life? And so this is how I've done that. So let's just unpack a few of them. Good God. The value is spirit first. I do believe that we are essentially spirit, and that is the essential and the eternal priority. Probably most of us here would agree with that. So the value is spirit first. The way I describe my role as a follower of Christ is that I'm a disciple. I like that old Bible term that talks about the follower or the student. And so I am primarily describe myself as a disciple. Don't describe myself here as a Christian. That's not as helpful or precise in meaning for me. Disciple has its own implications, and so I've been very thoughtful about that word. The practices that grow out of that is that I'm committed to a growing relationship with Jesus. I do that with a variety of daily and other disciplines. So it makes it pretty easy when I think about how I'm going to order my life in a new year, a new season of time, and ask myself, how am I going to grow in my relationship with Jesus this year? What are the fresh things I'm going to do? What's the fresh versions of the Bible I'm going to read? Am I going to read huge, bulky sections, or am I going to read small sections? Am I going to write and journal a lot? Am I going to journal a little? Am I going to pray with some kind of an acronym like the ACTS system, or am I going to use a journaling method like the SOAP acronym? And the idea is I want this to be fresh. I want it to be creative. I'm an entrepreneurial sort and a free spirit. I want to have freshness in that, but the value of spirit first, the role identity of disciple of Christ, and the practices of being daily engaged with Him are the constants in my life. Notice what's happening. I'm keeping the entrepreneurial spirit in my relationship with the Lord. Fresh, risk-taking, different, innovative, spontaneous, and maintaining this lifelong, eternal commitment that I've made with Him as well. I'm discovering that long-term commitment does not mean then that relationship has to get stale. And that's true in our human relationships as well. So let's take a look at the second one. Not all of you would have this as your second or necessarily value. People are in very different kinds of life situations. This is my deal. The value of a good family. I value the foundation of family for who I am and what I do. So my role is family guy. And specifically, I'm a husband, father, grandfather, son, brother, and uncle. And so I have practices that come out of that. So some of the people on the list get a daily touch by me, at least a daily touch. And some of them get a weekly touch. And some of them get a monthly touch. And some of them get a touch at least once every 6 months. And I actually keep score. Do. Now, they think I am spontaneous. So I have a lot of nieces and nephews. And they think that old Uncle Jared just showed up, or just texted, or just called, or just came through their town, or just had lunch with them. But old Jared isn't that good at keeping up with family. So old Jared does every month is he does a little audit. How's it working for you? And so I look back on the month and I discover that, I have a sibling that I haven't been in touch with this month. And I have a niece in Denver that I have not talked with for 6 months. Guess what's going to happen in my planning for the next month? It's going to get scheduled. So I live life spontaneously as long as it works for me. And when spontaneity is no longer working for me, I schedule it and do it intentionally. And the people that get the experience from me have no idea if it's spontaneous or if it's intentional. Planned, I should say. Because it's all intentional, because I'm a family guy. And I intend to touch my nieces and nephews at least once every 6 months. If it didn't happen spontaneously, it's going to happen on purpose in my calendar for the next month. So planning for me is kind of fun. It happens once a month. And it has two sides. It's an audit of how did it work for me last month. And where I find that I'm out of harmony in my 7 major roles in life last month, I intentionally plan in and schedule those touches in those roles of my life next month so I don't get out of harmony more than 2 months in a row. That's the intentionality of the commitment of relationships, because we mentioned the first big deal is relationships with God and with people. And I've discovered in my own life, living life reactively and spontaneously does not necessarily always lead me toward fulfilling the goals and commitments that I really intend to fulfill relationally with God and with others. So the little end of the month audit is when I get a reality check of how it's going for me and make the adjustments on being harmonious. So my kids, we have a son and daughter-in-law that just moved back to Portland from New York, so it's very fun. In fact, they live 1 block from us. It's just so much fun. And our daughter and son-in-law live in Seattle, and they're the fine couple that produced this most beautiful baby in the entire world, Katie Ann, for us. And so, especially when our kids were in New York and Seattle, we didn't get to see them all that often, and they get a weekly touch from me, and usually much more, but at least a weekly touch, and often that's an early morning text. And so I wondered why my new son-in-law never responded to my text. I mean, never. And it's okay, he's a cop, he's a macho guy, I know he likes me, you know, he's nice to me every time he sees me, you know, we're buds, but he just never responds to my text. 6 months, never responded to a text. And my texts are fairly nice. I sent him one this morning. And it's, hey man, just thinking about you. I'm so proud of you. I'm glad you're a cop. You are the best husband for my daughter. I am proud of you. You know, that kind of a thing. You know, a dad kind of a thing. So about 6 months into this deal, I get a text back one day. I go, that's very cool. And it has his name right there, you know, popped up. The text said, I have no idea who you are. But I've sure been enjoying these messages. And it sounds like you're someone's father-in-law. And if I ever need one, I want one like you. That's what it said. So. Intentional. There we go. Hey, please. Oh, with that other person? I so bad wanted to continue that relationship. I so bad did. And yeah, that once a year touch. That's right. Well, you notice what a beautiful segue. Thank you. And your name is? Ben. What a beautiful segue to friends, because I'll tell you why I didn't in that case, but I was tempted to. It's right here. Good friends. I value authentic relationships. And by the way, Ann and I, at a point in our life, got to actually take a year to do a life audit and ask ourselves the question. It's called a sabbatical. Ask ourselves the question, how's it working for us? And we found that in many of our values, we were living a life that was producing the kind of results that we really wanted to get. And in some other areas of our life, we were living in a way that was not producing results that we wanted to get. And this thing about friendship was one of the biggest roles in my life that I had a horrible deficiency. Both Ann and I, we were living in LA at the time. We were both traveling internationally. I was a leader and for a season of time, the principal leader of the Foursquare denomination, 130 countries, 50,000 churches. Ann was the national director of church planning for Foursquare, helping start 250 churches a year in the country. We were having the time of our life professionally, really just living at the peak, just so fulfilling and delightful and exciting. We knew tens of thousands of people, really, in traveling 34 countries, and everybody that we knew was nice. Okay? Our role changed, and we began to count the number of friends we had, and we were stunned, because what we discovered was we had lots of really nice acquaintances in life, but we had lived life in a way that did not produce friendships. By our definition, of friendship? Well, if you have a value and it's not producing the results that you intend, you have to intervene, right? That's an intervention. Because if you keep doing the same things you're doing, you're going to get the what kind of results? The same results. So we actually, I won't go into the long story, we made a major life intervention. Moved back home to Oregon from LA, moved to Hillsboro, moved in Orenco Station, moved specifically, we picked it in LA before we ever moved there, to one of 28 units that exist in the world there in Orenco Station. They're brownstones, work, live, space, 2 blocks to all your services. Whether you come in the back in the garage or go out the stoop in the front, you're running into neighbors. It's designed so you're constantly running into neighbors. You're doing all of your services right there. It was all intentional on our part. We had lived 49 years in a way that was not producing friendships. And I say a major role in my life is being a friend. It wasn't true. We physically, geographically, in terms of our life and schedule, our commitment to people around us radically changed because we said, if our role is friend, and if we really are committed to the value of authentic relationships with others that are below the surface of acquaintances with nice people, we have to change the way we live so we can have and be friends. So it's very, very important. And you notice there, when it comes to practices, that we sustain some old friendships. Just talking this week with a friend that went to grade school with. We've been in business together. We started a financial services firm together that we grew and we sold. I just performed a wedding last month for one of his daughters. Lifelong friends. Can't nurture a relationship with very many lifelong friends, but there are a few. I'm going to make sure that I have some roots back. And just saw a Social Network, by the way, a Christian group. I could never recommend a movie, right? There's some bad stuff in there. So I'm not recommending it to anybody. But I sure enjoyed most of it. And I just thought,